Please comment on these monitoring mechanisms from a project in Papua New Guinea for community water transport. My comment on these monitoring mechanisms is that, first of all, as we've said before, there should be no On the second point, surveys are an appropriate monitoring mechanism or source of data. However, to be useful, we need to know whether these surveys are carried out on a routine basis or whether this is something to be initiated by the project. In other words, we have to have a reasonable degree of confidence that they are going to take place. Otherwise, we will find ourselves unable to measure progress. National statistics can also be a valid source of data for monitoring progress. However, once again, we need to know what are the specific national statistics. Are we talking about household income and expenditure surveys, for example? And is this a routine data series of the National Statistics Office? Or are we talking about some other type of survey or statistical data collection? Is this done routinely, or is this something which we are expecting to take place particularly for this project? Finally, on the data of the health and education departments, this also can be a valid source of data for monitoring progress. But once again, we need to know which data. Is this something that these departments already collect on a routine basis, or will it have to be developed through the project? For the second comments on monitoring mechanisms, we return to the project in Sri Lanka. My comments on these monitoring mechanisms, at the goal level, national and local statistics, as I just mentioned, need to be made more specific. Which statistics? Which statistical series? Again, we need to have confidence that this data is going to be available. Similarly, socioeconomic and household surveys. Who is going to conduct these surveys? Will the funding be available? Again, we need to be confident that this will in fact take place. At the purpose level, this only lists the reports or the ways in which the information is going to be recorded. What we really need to know is the data sources. Where's the information going to come from that will go into these reports? So there's nothing wrong with including this list of reports, but it must be accompanied by a clear indication of where the data is going to be sourced from. Finally, I'd like you to comment on these monitoring mechanisms from a project which is still in preparation for the Philippines Judicial Reform Project. I think this is a pretty good set of monitoring mechanisms. At the goal level, with the exception of court surveys, these are all existing sources of information which are collected by third parties. We know they're going to be available, which is good. The court surveys, as I found out, are to be developed as part of the project, and there is a high degree of confidence that they will be carried out. At the purpose level, there's an interesting point to illustrate there. Some targets are simply the presence or absence of something. For example, the passage of a piece of legislation, and so that the monitoring mechanism is the existence of that piece of legislation. And this first monitoring mechanism just states Judiciary Autonomy Act. Now, I don't know the situation in the Philippines, but I would just maybe clarify that as to what is the last step in the process that is required for legislation to become law. and I'd be inclined to phrase it that way. In some countries, I know it is that it appears in the government gazette. Similarly, the other purpose-level monitoring mechanisms are a mix of either presence or absence of something, or the key documents which will be the source, the evidence for achievement of the target.